Hello, welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Anika Pinkett.
And I'm Andrea Rose Washington, and welcome to episode 7 of both Star Trek Discovery and our podcast. So we would like to thank everyone for getting us to 100 all-time plays. We just hit that record yesterday, so claps and snaps for us. We're so excited. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're definitely seeing us party. If you're just listening to this, imagine in your head us going crazy because we're excited. And I know I danced around my room. Did you?
Yes.
Yay. Okay, and so in this episode 7 of Star Trek Discovery, it's called Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, which honestly, it was about to make me go mad. But in this episode, we get to learn a lot about Michael through both her monologue and through seeing her grow throughout this episode, which is really weird because she was growing, but it was different Michaels who were growing. Right. So we get to see what's going to happen from that. Think Groundhog Day when you think of this episode. So the description for this episode states, during a party aboard the USS Discovery, Michael learns about love and an unwelcome visitor wreaks havoc. I wonder who that could be. So what did you think of the opening monologue from Michael for this episode?
The opening monologue was wacky. I just want to also say that this episode to me was just like sci-fi wacky. It was just it was a little Twilight Zone, a little weird. But the opening monologue seemed like Michael's personal journey into like discovering more about herself and also getting to know the newest member of the crew.
Which was interesting because for this episode, from the start, opening scene, it made me really realize that Michael is opening up after being on the Discovery. She's seeing more of herself. She's becoming more open to other possibilities and just sort of growing outside of that Vulcan side of her. So I liked it. But yeah, you're right. It was a wacky episode. Definitely was a wacky episode. But I like that Michael admitted that she wanted to get out of her comfort zone. She wanted to learn more, to get out there. And so her greatest challenge that she states at the end of this monologue is a party. And she's going to a party, which again is interesting because remember, people, the hill that I will die on, she's technically like still a prisoner somewhat, but not. So
yeah, I like to think of it as a work release program
the rest of her life because she's like has so many life sentences. And so it was interesting for me to see the beginning, to see her growing connected to the people that, who knows, one day she may have to say goodbye to if Captain Lorca's plan of keeping her on the ship falls through. So it was very interesting to see her. This was a very interesting episode for me to see her like this.
Right. I was also hoping that the episode would start out again with her Vulcan adopted father. And so I just want to say that because they left off the last episode with her helping him, and then she walked out of the infirmary and so I'm just looking for, I'll wait some more for a little bit more closure. They need that to wrap back around to Sarek and learn about their relationship and how to mend that. I feel like that was kind of left with the cliffhanger there. But she's reflecting upon herself, though, and learning more about, I think, also where she wants to go in her life. And there's more than just being possibly a captain.
So I'm going to say that to me, this felt like a filler episode. I don't know if it felt like that to anyone else, but it felt like this didn't really do anything for the Discovery timeline. Like technically it did, but at the same time it didn't. Because who knows how many times I think he's up to like 50 times. He killed Captain Lorca over 50 times. So they were in that loop for 50, 30-minute periods. But again, nothing really happened from this episode. So it's like we saw Michael grow in all of the timelines, but this Michael at the very end never went through any of all of that technically. So it's like, it felt like a filler episode to me a bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I also think that it was an opportunity for us to see different sides of Michael without impacting the end result. And see like opportunities for her to trust more and learn more and dance, even though it's not really the end result, Michael.
Even though she likes to lead and she can't and everything.
Yeah, she has to learn more about how to follow. Yes.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I think this episode, though, helped with the character arc of Paul Sanest. I think that's
it did help for him.
Yes, because he was very stiff a few episodes ago, and then he was injected with like the spore core, and he's like has the he's
like the DNA from Ripper, and then now he can like he can work with the spore core, which Michael sort of gives. We never see him used again after the first time, but from Michael's monologue, we can hear that they're still being used as a spore drive. So they're still using him as the component to the spore drive, but we never get to see him in that role.
Right. But we also learn a little bit more about Paul's background with, I've forgotten his name. His partner. What's his partner's name? Help me.
His partner's name is Hugh.
Hugh, thank you.
Because you wrote that in our notes, people. She wrote it in her notes. So I can't take the credit for that. She did this.
But so I guess Hugh developed a device implanted into Paul's skin to help him with the use of the spore core. So in that and they were reflecting upon basically their relationship as a partner and when they first met. So I thought that was interesting. I learned a lot more about Paul this episode.
I'm liking Paul more and more in this episode. This was definitely more of a Paul episode. Well, more than normal. It was a Paul episode more than normal. So okay, they're at the party, and this is the first go around, and they get called to the Ash and Michael get called to the bridge, and they go there, and she finds a space well, and it's a space well, people. There are space wells, which is amazing. And so it is their duty to then take the space well, the Gorma Garden, to a rescue area, a safer spot for them to be at because they are an endangered species and they need to copulate to make more of them. So they need to be somewhere safe to do that. So that is how this episode sort of gets started, because they beam the well aboard the ship, and Michael goes down there to check what's going out, and then mud comes out of the well's mouth. It was like a reverse Jonah. But not not a reverse Jonah, because Jonah did come out of the belly as well. But it was a Jonah, but not the Jonah you want.
Right. And he came out blaring, like he was shooting his favors.
Pop.
Yeah. Killing. Yeah. Right.
He was ready to go, and it caught them off guard. And it was when he was talking to Captain Lorca that we realized, this episode's going to be a little different. When he blows himself up and the ship, only for this to all get started over again. And then in this episode, we also learn, because of Paul's connection to the spore drive and because of what he did with Ripper's DNA, that he's technically out of the time loop. And I'm gonna be honest, before they showed that it was Paul, I thought Michael would pick up on it. I thought they were like gonna like make her figure out that, wait, deja vu. We did this before. What's going on? But it wasn't her at all. It was Paul, which I like that. Spreading the wealth of knowledge around and action.
Yes. So it's not the Michael Brown show. It's yes.
I love her, and her hair was awesome today. I like that they showing a little bit more of Michael and his alien infected self. And then we also hear Harry talking about Stella, and I'm getting annoyed with him. I'm getting annoyed with Harry in this episode. What did you think about Harry's role in this episode? Not the ending, but just like his tenacity to do the same thing 50 times until he learned it all.
Right. So Harry, to me, his character is like a pirate, like just on this particular mission to get, he wanted to be able to access their travel system. He didn't know all the details, so he was just working for each, I want to say, jump in time. He was getting a little bit more piece of information so that then in the next jump, he could get more information until he could figure out all the pieces of the puzzle. And he's all about himself, but he states that it's all about his relationship with Stella, but I don't know. I'm not convinced of that, because then maybe he wouldn't have been in this situation in the first place if it's all about love, because then you're more conservative if you're worried about someone else's livelihood. We end up finding out it's because he wants to gather this information to sell it to the Klingons. But he's just self-centered and grimy, and he's a master manipulator.
He really is. But so the little nugget of information you just threw out there, that he's doing all of this to sell the ship and the secrets to the Klingons, because what the Admiral warned Lorca about came true. The Klingons realized Discovery is Starfleet's hidden weapon, and they want the secrets. And that's what he's doing. That's what Mudd is doing. He is going to basically do what Starfleet has been working to not do, what the Admiral has been trying not to do, which is a side note, which made me think, what's happening with the Admiral? Because we didn't hear anything about that this episode. So it makes me think next episode we'll probably hear something about what's going on with her. Because there wasn't a mention of anything.
Right, I hope so, because last we heard, she was kidnapped by the Klingons. So, yeah, I hope she's alive. That's all I can say. She's out on her own. There's no one there. Everyone else all the other Starfleet was killed by the Klingons.
That's true. We also see more of Michael trying to come out of that awkward shell. And we can see that Ash is trying to break into that shell. And that we're seeing Michael having feelings for Ash. And which I think is really cute, because this is like her first high school crush, and it's so adorable, like, oh hearts. But also it was sweet to see that Ash was like understanding that she had some limitations, or understanding what was going on. Like, her awkwardness wasn't rude. It was, he knew that she was just not aware of what she was doing. What did you think of all of their interactions throughout this episode?
To me, it seemed like she is the high school kid, the high school girl who likes this guy, and he's dated around, and she's not as experienced and a little bit nerdy. Like that storyline that we see a lot in movies. Like, this is the case.
If I had glasses, I pushed them up. The girl with the glasses who sits by herself, and it's like a little awkward. She has that one friend, Tilly.
Right.
And that one friend's like, go get your man, girl. And she's like, I don't know what to do. And that's the popular boy. That is such a good, look at you. I didn't even put that connection together. See, thank you. This is what I need you.
But what's cool is that it's Michael and not Tilly in that situation. I think that would be the obvious if Tilly had a crush. and was stuttering and not quite sure how to approach the guy. But Tilly's the one that's really cool, not like stutter in the party. Oh, Tilly's all out there and playing beer pong or whatever.
Their version of bear pong, which was like the person had to hold the cup in their mouth, and the person had to bounce the ping pong from the table into the person's cup that was being held in their mouth, which was interesting.
Yeah, it's nice to
you gotta
know
make it more fun in space.
Yeah, that these drinking games have lasted the millennia, like have lasted centuries.
Yeah, you're not getting out of them.
Right. But it was also it was fun because she didn't like, she was kind of stiff. She still had her Michael still had her jacket all zipped up and very formal, and everyone else was kind of like either was wearing a t-shirt or another dress. Tilly was like really dressed. She was wearing heels. And then even
had a jumpsuit on, was looking fly, looking fierce, Tilly, with your hair out. Like, oh, yes.
And Ash was there, but he had his jacket zipped down, so it was a little bit more casual. But I definitely remember a scene in which Ash and Michael were talking, and Michael made it seem as though she doesn't like to date, or she never dated actually in Starfleet because it was against protocol. And then I was just thinking back to the last episode where like the Admiral and the Captain Lorca were intimate. So they were throwing out protocols. So I don't know what
yeah. And it's like, no, you're a superior officer. You're not allowed to have a relation with someone who's technically under you. No. Shame, 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 shame.
And so it shows how Michael is about the book, but in reality,
no one else really is.
Right. It's all about the feelings. There were a lot of coupling going on at that party.
There was a lot of coupling going on in that party. But before we get into that, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with our thoughts about the ending of this episode. And then our thoughts overall of what we thought this episode did or how we liked it. Because I have some thoughts on that. Be right back, everyone.
Welcome back to episode 7.
We are so excited for you to be here. So now we're going to discuss the second half of the Discovery episode and some little fun facts that we like that got thrown in, little Easter eggs that I like to call them. We like to call them from the episode. So at the end of this episode, after the Discovery has been blown up at least 50 times, we have seen Michael and Ash and Sanest and Captain Lorca and the crew and the engineering crew murdered over and over and over again. They finally have a one-up on them because Michael goes to Sanest and turns herself over to him, basically saying, hey, you know those Klingons that hate you, that you're trying to sell to? I killed the leader, and then kills herself to cause Harry Mudd to go back in time one more time. And that is how they get the one over on him. And Harry Mudd gets away. They trick him. They get Stella back. And he walks free, basically.
So for all those podcast listeners out there, you can't see me, but I rolled my eyes like in a great big rainbow because I think this is ridiculous.
I dropped a few words that I cannot say to keep this podcast kid friendly. Multiple times. I wrote them in the notes for like our shared notes that we do for every single episode. I wrote WTF, WTF, WTF. How does he get away with this? I was hoping Stella would be like this super bad a mother effer who was like, when she saw Harry, she'd punch him and like beat him down, like, how dare you? And that her father would be like, I'm gonna kill you or something. And instead, she runs up to him, kisses him, says, don't worry, we'll make everything right. And a man who has literally made his living off of murdering, like he was trying to literally, not trying to, he did murder so many people in Discovery over and over and over again. He got so many other people on the Klingon ship beaten, possibly killed, betrayed them over and over again, and gets to go live in the life of luxury.
Well, also,
no.
She said that she will, either her or her father will pay off the debt.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking, she's whipped. Like, I don't know what in the world is wrong with this woman.
Her father is what's wrong with her. Her father raised her to not have any consequences to think like herself, because he's like, well, my daughter likes you. No. Sir, excuse me. My father would have been like, I'm sorry, he did what?
Right.
He did what? And you think I'm going to let you, a con artist who's already conned us once,
right,
has conned so many other people, who has shown that he was willing to murder people over and over and over again, marry my only daughter? The end of the episode ruined the entire episode for me. Like, I'm sorry, people, but like that ending of him getting away, you people are vilifying Michael Burnham, and this dude gets to go away.
Right.
And I get that no one's actually dead in this timeline, but Sanest remembers. He knows each and everything that he's done. He still broke onto the ship. He still tried to sell the ship to the Klingons. He still broke the law. And if you took his time crystal, he couldn't go back in time. So why not arrest him?
Right. And there's been other people that have died in this timeline. And hey, during the disco, they mentioned the 10,000 people that died during the war with the Klingons. So I don't understand why he wasn't imprisoned, Harry Mudd, for all that he did. And I didn't think that he would do the same for Lorca and for Ash. He's all about himself.
He really is.
And so I don't think Stella realizes that he is a master manipulator, and he doesn't really love
her. You wrote in the notes that you questioning, like, did Harry really love Stella? And I think the answer is no. I don't think he loved her. I think he loves the idea of her. I think he loves what she can do for him, but he does not love her. No.
Because if that was the case, why didn't, when he, I guess, captured this Klingon ship that was inside of the space whale, why didn't he contact her then?
Yeah. Why didn't he go to her? And Michael made a really good point at that. Like, why didn't you go to her?
Oh my goodness gracious. I'm skeptical about the whole storyline here. I'm hoping it circles back and there's some sort of other revenge for Harry Mudd to take out, but they just let him go way too easy for me. I'm not
way too easy.
I need justice.
I did. I was hoping that it would be some type of setup, some type of something that would make everything they went through worth it, and it wasn't. And this was probably the first episode that they let me down on. Like, I was sort of really upset with this episode.
At worst, I mean, he endangered an endangered species.
He put a ship inside of her.
Right. That's why she wasn't well. And there's so many other things, though, but that's quite obvious.
Like, I don't understand. People, I don't understand. Comment in the comments on or let us know what did you think? Like, what did you think of that ending? Did you like it or did you not? And if you did, why? And if you didn't, I understand, but like, why?
Thank goodness for Paul. Otherwise, they would have been dead a long time ago.
Dead, done, finito, finished.
And Harry Mudd would have everything and was sold it over to the Klingons and live happily ever after. Yeah.
Nope, don't like that episode. Okay, so you had a little bit of fun facts for this episode. What were some things that you noticed?
So speaking of Paul and helping to just like solve this mystery and like getting information from Michael so that she would be able to confide in him later, trust him for the next iteration, so that he could help move this along, and they could outwit Harry Mudd. So all of that was about like how they could solve this and stay alive. And I just thought it was a beautiful soundtrack for this episode. They featured like a remix from Wyclef. We Tried to Stay Alive remix, and that's based on the Bee Gees from the 1970s, which really tied into the whole party disco scene. So in the previous episode, Michael and Tilly was working out wearing a black t-shirt with disco written on the front, and I thought that was a connection between like Discovery brand. But now with this, there were also people working out in another scene wearing a disco shirt, and then also there's the whole disco vibe in the party. So I thought that was a really cute connection, and with staying alive and the meaning behind that in this whole storyline. And then
that was a nice connection.
Yeah. And then one of my favorite scenes were the combination, the kiss between her and Ash, and their slow dance to Love and Happiness.
The kiss that technically never happened.
It happened in a different time. It happened for me. It's just, we know that it happened. We all know.
It goes back to the like all of her growth and everything didn't technically happen because she technically didn't grow the same way all those other ones did.
Right.
She just knows what she did.
But it happened in Paul's timeline. So
it did. So he told them it happened. Like at the end of the episode, she does admit like that we kissed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There wasn't really real growth for me because technically she didn't grow. But okay, I will say I didn't. Another pet peeve I have about this episode. When you mentioned Paul getting the information from Michael so that she would like trust him. Like, tell me a secret. Literally, you could have told him anything, and you told him that you've never been in love. Like, I guess I can see what they're trying to do. Like, they're trying to like awaken her more human side than her like Vulcan side, and like, but like seriously, that's the secret you're gonna use to like.
That was the first thing that popped into her head because she just had that conversation with Ash, probably.
That's true. I could see that.
And then, second of all, I think it's something that she knew was going to be completely opposite of anything anyone would know. Like,
I know, but there's like nothing else that she could have said instead of like almost something so like pitiful, because like Paul ends up saying, "I'm so sorry." And it was like, because I've never been in love. Like, maybe you haven't met anyone who's worth being in love with. That's not always a bad thing.
Right.
Not everyone is worth falling in love with. I don't know. Maybe that's just my cynical side coming out.
And she was all work. How do you live on a ship for, how long was she on the ship for? Like, I can't remember. A long time. Like 7 years. 7 years. But in her mind, and because of Starfleet protocol, she was strictly following, I can't date with anyone there. Right before that, she was with the Vulcan Academy, like the Science Academy. So she wasn't, so I think she was just really career driven. And it's not until now she's not really part of Starfleet that she's like, well, hey, I don't have any rules here.
And
now she can explore. She can live
outside. That's another tidbit of information that was sort of like interesting to see how they're going to play it out, because technically you're right. She's not a part of Starfleet anymore. She's still technically a prisoner. Like, so like you said, a work release program. If she's going to get really close to all these people and she's going to fall in love, because the fact that she said she's never been in love means she's going to probably fall in love with Ash. I feel like that's where they're leading the road down. Can they actually have a relationship? Like they can on the Discovery, but will it ever mean anything off of it? Because she's still a court-martialed Starfleet mutineer. Remember, people, he'll I would die on. I don't believe it, but it's still that's what it is.
He's the chief of security.
Yeah, like could they really ever actually have a real relationship to where they are even socially equals? Because he can go to places that she can't. He can be introduced to people she can't anymore. And it's going to create a huge imbalance in their life off ship. And granted, I know she can't really leave the ship, but he can. There's opportunities and things in his life that he can now do that while she's still in this limbo, you're on the ship, you're part of the crew, but you're not a part of the crew and you're only here for the war. What happens if they win the war tomorrow?
Right now, they're just at the crush stage.
They are
in love. They're not thinking long-term commitment.
And they're not. Right? And that doesn't seem like her.
Right. And then also between the opening monologue and then the fact that, if I remember correctly, the space whale, like they needed to take it in so it could reproduce. Mm-hmm. And so it was all about, there was a statement that she made when they discovered the space whale about the reproduction of it. And I was thinking, well, maybe Michael is like that too at this stage, and she's coming of age and she hasn't really had an opportunity to do any reproducing. So,
she said,
so maybe there's a connection there.
When Lorca said, I thought these things have been hunted to extinction, she responded with, hunting isn't the cause of the reduction in numbers. It's primarily due to their mating practices or lack thereof. They spend their lives feeding on an alpha particle in the solar winds. They're often so consumed by this task that they ignore all other instincts, including reproduction. And I believe Lorca comes back and says that's a depressing trait as I've ever heard. But it was like you said, it was like her life. She was so consumed with what she was supposed to do that she didn't really focus on anything else. And that could even go back to with Sarek, because she was so focused on trying to like prove her worth to him that she put everything else aside when she didn't get into the Vulcan Science Academy or whatever their version of Starfleet was. When she didn't get into that, she was so focused on like proving to him that she could be great. She didn't focus on anything else around her. And so I do think in the very beginning, she identified with the well, because now she's like waking up after realizing, oh, wait, my father wasn't ashamed of me. He was ashamed of himself. So, yeah, that was you're right. That was a correlation between the two of them.
Right. So there's connections there. This episode might be a little deeper than what we previously thought. But for me, the biggest takeaway, that Michael is starting to step out of her shell. Mm-hmm. The second biggest takeaway is that Paul can jump between time and maybe not really die.
I don't know if it's not that he can't die, because I don't think he died in any of the other ones. Well, he did, but like he wasn't killed by mud. Right. So I don't know if it was like a jump or he's just aware of all the different times that he goes through.
Right.
Because he still dies.
He has a lot of abilities that will be interesting for us to see.
Okay, so final thoughts on this episode. What do you think?
Wasn't the best, but I'm digging Paul, and once again, I'm along for the ride with Michael. Let's see how this all works out.
I again go back to what I said in the first half. I think this was like a filler episode. We did learn some stuff about the team, about Michael. We saw her grow, but not really, but grow. And we saw a lot more about Michael. I was really let down by the whole mud capture thing. Like it was like they ran out of money and that was the easiest thing they could do. Like that's what it felt like. I was like, oh, when I saw that scene, I was like, no. When they were leading up to it, I just knew Stella was going to deck him, going to hit him, going to like they were going to pay off a bounty, or like they were going to turn him in for a bounty. I just knew he was going to get his comeuppance and he gets to go. So I'm not okay with that, people. So again, another hill I would die on. I'm just digging those hills or filling those hills or whatever the term is. I'm just making them. But yeah, no, I'm still excited for the next episode. I'm very excited to see what happens with the Admiral. And if Michael ever gets to have that conversation with Sarek. So those are my final thoughts. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I'm also looking forward to learning more about Ash.
Yes.
And the relationship developing with Michael. He's different, but it seems as though he's willing to be patient with her.
And she needs that.
So,
I am Andrea Rose.
And I'm Anika Pinkett.
And live long and prosper.